Now, welcome to this Ranger Spring Training Live Interactive.
Hey everyone, welcome back into day 2 of the Ranger Spring Training Interactive. As we told you all week long, we'll be bringing you news from Surprise, Arizona. Our own Tobin McDuff live on the ground there in Surprise. Tobin, first of all, before we get to any news, I just want to ask, how's it been? You've been there for a few days now for day 2 of talking to us. How's it been? How's the last 24 hours been since we talked to you?
Man, I just tell you what, I mean, spring training is just an exciting thing to be at. I mean, spring training is so laid back, and if you love the game of baseball, there's no better place to go than the ballpark in Arizona or in Florida because of the relaxed atmosphere and the availability that you have to get close to the players.
And the weather this time of year, I don't think you can pass up on that either, and it can be not too great sometimes in February and March. But first of all, I wanted to talk to you. This time yesterday, we talked to you about Willie Calhoun. Later in the day, you had the package about him. Any sort of updates there? What have you heard? I know a lot of fans really curious about that because, not a good situation, but what have you heard from Willie recently?
Yeah, well, manager Chris Woodward spoke to the media this morning about Willie Calhoun and said that several of the players and himself have FaceTimed with him. So they've been communicating with him, although he is not talking all that much. But for such a bad scenario, or what could have been, Woodward says that this is probably a best case scenario with what did happen. He's going to recover, and he kind of hinted that he's going to be back sooner in the clubhouse than a lot of us maybe expect. He could actually be released from the hospital as early as today.
I know that's good for the team, that's good for Willie, that's good for the fans. In this type of situation, there's never a great outcome, but there is better ones than others. But another health thing we want to talk about, it's all anyone can talk about in the news. You go on social media, you're going to see it, the coronavirus, and right now it's about sporting events. March Madness, they may do it without fans. It may impact all sorts of things. With you guys there at Surprise, Arizona at training camps, what kind of precautions are they taking? How could this impact the Rangers' spring training?
Well, of course, Major League Baseball came down with the mandate that the clubhouses are being closed off to non-essential personnel, and that it would include the media. So today, we had access to the players. We just had to kind of go out back behind the clubhouse where we were outdoors. We were in an open atmosphere as opposed to the closed atmosphere that you have in a locker room. So they're hoping that that helps. They're just encouraging players and media and employees here at Surprise Stadium alike to make sure that you're washing your hands regularly, that you're not touching your face after you've touched anything else. That people are using hand sanitizer, wiping things down with Clorox wipes all the time. When the players go out to the field, they go through a cleaning process inside the locker room and the weight room to try to make sure that they maintain health for the players. As far as autographs and things that are going down the line, Robinson Chirinos mentioned this morning that they're in the works of just signing a bunch of baseball cards in advance before they go out to the stadiums and handing those autographs out to players so they don't have to take balls from players or take Sharpies from players, take pens from players, using those markers and pens over and over and over again, and possibly spreading germs. So they're just taking minor precautions to avoid a worst-case scenario.
And you mentioned, obviously, you never can take too many precautions in a situation like this, but whenever you look around, is it things going on basically as normal other than the precautions? Do you see fans, teams, are they talking about it a whole lot, or are they mainly just focused on the precautions, and then outside of that, it's really business as normal?
Yeah, it's pretty much business as normal. The players were talking this morning that, their families are still welcome to be here and the kids are still allowed to come in the clubhouse. As far as the fans are concerned, they probably seem to be the least concerned. When we talk to the fans, they're basically saying, we wouldn't even be thinking about it if the media wasn't bringing it up. So, I don't think that it's a major concern just because it hasn't struck here. Now, one thing that Robinson Chirinos did say this morning is he does have a little concern about traveling to Seattle because that seems to be where, in the United States, it has struck the worst, and that is where the Texas Rangers open their season, is at Seattle. So he did express a little bit of concern about traveling to Seattle.
And you mentioned Robinson Chirinos there. He was a former Ranger from 2013 to 2018, then joined the Astros. But now he's coming back with this team. When you talk about guys that are not trying to rebuild, but they're trying to build this team back up to compete for World Series, What is it like bringing in a guy like that who has the age, he's the veteran, he can be a voice in the locker room? What is it like for him coming back? What's the adjustments he's making, the team's making? What can he really bring back to the Rangers?
You know, I remember here in spring training a couple of years back when they announced him signing a contract and that wanted to keep him here as a Ranger. The organization really, really likes Robinson Chirinos, and for good reason. I mean, he's a good catcher, he's a good backstop, he's a good receiver. He's got some pop in his bat. So I think the team is glad to have him back. I think he's glad to be back. So a happy player, you know, makes for maybe a good performance this season. One thing that he said that he's working on the most during spring training right now is just developing that relationship and that trust with some of those new pitchers that are here in camp, you know, like Corey Kluber, like Kyle Gibson, and you know, some of the relievers as well that he hasn't worked with in the past. And he just said, you know, that's the most important thing between a catcher and a pitcher is trust in him calling the game and that he knows what he's doing. And if they can find that trust, things are going to happen. Good things are going to happen for the Rangers this season.
And you mentioned they're happy to have him back. He's happy to be back. And regardless of what the Astros have been going here the last few months, but to be away from the Rangers, join another organization, how can that help him? How being away from it, you know, coming back, can he bring things back to it? Can it just be a revitalization to join a team you've already been? How can being at another franchise and then coming back to one you were with so long, how can that really benefit him and the Rangers as a whole?
Well, listening to something that, you know, the way he talks, it's kind of like if you miss something and it's gone for a while, you want it back. It's almost like suffering an injury. You know, if you're away from the game for a while, when you come back, you appreciate it a little bit more. And I think that may be the case with Robinson Chirinos, is that he was away from the organization that gave him that opportunity, that gave him that first chance, and now he's back with that organization. So I think the word that you used was revitalization, and I think that's a good term to use for Robinson Chirinos returning this season. He's a little bit revitalized as he's returned to the organization that gave him that opportunity, and he wants to prove that he can come through for this franchise.
And I know a lot of the games played inside Astros, you know, the new Rangers one, but, you know, staying in Texas, going from Arlington, you know, you head out to Houston, you come back. It's not really too many crazy culture shocks, but something people are always curious about in spring trainings, regardless of the club, but when you look at the Rangers specifically, is position battles. One we really wanted to touch on, Ronald Guzman, been the first baseman, he's been the guy there. I believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, the Rangers want him to be the guy, but this year they bring in Greg Bird to push him. What kind of battle do you see there? What has the team talked about? What kind of battle do you see between those two guys? Both fairly young, but guys that they want to build around, but what they can really see out of Guzman to maybe take that next step and really improve his hitting and be the first baseman that they need and want.
Yeah, I mean, Guzman's that big target at first base, too. They've talked about that as they like the prospect of having him there because he's so tall and so long. That makes him a great defender and a great target for the rest of the infield. Greg Bird, you know, is coming off an injury. Guzman last year was sent down to the minors, so they both have to overcome something from a year ago, and they both have something to prove this season. And neither one has really grabbed a hold of that first base position this year. Now, the Rangers used 5 first basemen last year, and I think they'd like to use less than that at first base if they can. So we could see Guzman. We could see Greg Bird at first base as well. Woodward said this morning that whoever starts on opening day, don't think that that's going to be the last you hear of the other player. Another possibility that he mentioned is Isaiah Kiner-Falefa has performed so well in spring training that he said it's going to be hard to keep him off the field. And, of course, he can play third base. And if he goes to third base, that could move Todd Frazier from third to first base on occasion this season as well. So those are 3 players that you're likely to see at first base this year in Guzman, Bird, and some Todd Frazier as well.
And going off that just a tiny bit, between those 3 specifically, you look at Guzman, Bird, you even add in Frazier there, though. Is this something ideally they'd like to have wrapped up to a couple guys and be done with it, you know, near the beginning of the season? Or are they totally comfortable with it being all season long and just kind of playing it by ear?
No, I think they definitely want to have that one player. And Chris Woodward said this morning that this next week is going to go a long way toward deciding what happens on opening day. And then, I mean, once they get the position, I mean, they've got to hold on to it. It's not going to be given to them and given to them for the season. So once they get to Globe Life Field, they've still got to prove themselves day in and day out and develop that dependability is the word that Woodward used this morning. He wants to have a player that's dependable day in and day out.
All right, Tobin, we appreciate it. Well, that'll do it for your 2020 Rangers Spring Training Interactive today, day 2. Again, that was Tobin McDuff. Thanks to him, I am Ryan King. We'll be back here tomorrow, same time, 1 o'clock Central Standard Time for day 3 of our Rangers Spring Training Interactive. Hope you join us. Have a great day.